Any fellow introverts in marketing thriving in an extroverted world? Because throughout my career in HR, recruiting, and marketing, it seems that the spotlight has always been casted to shine the brightest on the extroverts. And maybe it's no wonder. Their natural ease in social situations, comfort with public speaking, and seemingly endless energy for networking can make them seem like the ideal marketers or the ideal for any role. However, this perspective overlooks the unique strengths and contributions of introverts in the marketing field. And as an introvert in marketing and communications, an entrepreneur as well, I've navigated this extroverted domain and discovered ways to leverage my introverted qualities for success. And not just as an entrepreneur, but also in employee branding, personal branding, and the branding of our business. In this episode of the Building a Modern Employer Brand podcast, I'm sharing you some of my thoughts and experiences as an introvert in marketing. And I'm hoping that this episode works both as an inspiration and a support element for my peer introverts in marketing and employer branding, but also as an eye-opener for our extroverted counterparts in marketing on why we are the way that we are and how to make the most out of our collaboration. If you are new to this podcast, my name is Susanna Rantanen, and as one of the top employer branding experts and influencers globally, I'm here to inspire, educate, guide, and hopefully also entertain those of you who want to learn how to use branding, marketing, and communications for ultimate professional success. And whether you are working in marketing, communications, HR, talent acquisition, or employer branding, with me, I'll promise that you'll learn how to win sustainable attention in a world where attention is no longer a default. Introverts are often misunderstood as shy or antisocial, but these are misconceptions. Introversion is fundamentally about how one recharges and processes information, and how social situations are an energy taker for introverts instead of an energy builder like they are for the extroverts. And introverts tend to feel more energized by solitary activities and need time alone to recharge after social interactions. They're often reflective, thoughtful, good listeners, qualities that are incredibly valuable in marketing. In my journey, I found that one of the greatest strengths of an introverted marketer is the ability to listen and observe. In a field where understanding consumer behavior, understanding talent behavior, and references is crucial, being a good listener can be a superpower. By paying close attention to what clients and customers are saying, what talents, what job seekers and employees are saying, and more importantly, what they're not saying, introverts can gain deep insights that inform more effectively what kind of marketing strategies one needs to choose. There's a lot more going on inside my head than others will ever see from the outside. Introverts tend to be deep thinkers and need time to process their thoughts into words. When I was younger, I didn't quite understand the introverted characteristics in me. Becoming asked, do you have questions for me? For example, in a job interview scenario, always made me ashamed of not having anything to ask. Later in my life, I understood I just need time to process and form my questions, preferably on paper first. And this discovery helped me to plan ahead all those situations where I was presented with the opportunity or the expectation to ask questions from others. And in general, I organize information and thoughts through writing. This is what I discovered early in my entrepreneur career when one winter I broke the wrist on this writing hand and tried to instruct my team to take over some of my work. And I struggled giving advice vocally. And I realized that I needed to write it or doodle it first to organize my thoughts and then talk it through with my employees, which was hard because this is my writing hand and it was in a cast. Now, introverts often excel in deep thinking and concentration. And this trait is a boon in marketing where developing creative concepts and strategic plans requires focus and contemplation. And in my experience, some of the best marketing ideas come from this deep, uninterrupted thought, something that introverts apparently naturally excel at. I'm at my most creative mind when I'm listening other thinkers speaking. Can be a keynote speech or simply listening to a podcast episode or nonfiction audiobooks, and suddenly I find my mind wandering and I'm plotting and creating and producing initiatives and ideas. And one of the regular thing for me is that I love going for long walks alone by myself. Well, I'm an introvert. But the thing is that I want to listen to some juicy nonfiction book or a podcast episode. And I oftentimes find myself picking up my phone from my pocket only to send myself emails on those various ideas and thoughts that are coming up in my head while I'm listening to that podcast episode or an audiobook. And in the car where I can't write, I stop, put a pause on what I'm listening, and I take my phone and I put the video on and I record a selfie video, but from this angle, like the non-complimentary angle, like from down towards up. And I record my thoughts on my video. And the reason why I do it like that is that then I'm able to recognize which of the videos on my phone are these thought videos and definitely not for publishing for others to see. Now, as someone who literally loves playing with words, I found written communication to be a strong suit for me. I'm pretty sure many introverts out there in marketing can relate with me. In today's digital world, where content is king, the ability to craft compelling narratives and write persuasive copy and engage our audiences through storytelling is invaluable. Introverts often find it easier to express themselves in writing, making them adept at creating content that resonates with audiences. Albeit, content creation does not have to be copy text. As in recent content, many successful brands and content creators are better at expressing themselves on video instead of writing. So if you relate to video content creation better, absolutely go for it. In fact, short form videos are likely to be more engaging than copy texts, unless, of course, you ace copywriting. Now, I've personally spent tens of thousands of dollars in learning written communication techniques that I use in content creation and content marketing, both for my business, for our clients, and obviously for my own personal branding. While introverts may find large networking events draining, which I do, introverts are often skilled at building deep, meaningful relationships, and that's the same for me as well. Don't get me wrong, I love spending time with people, and I do get bored and uninspired spending too much time in isolation, not connected to other people. But I'm quite awkward in making social initiatives on my own with people I have not had prior connection with before, people that I don't know. So things like cold calling and going alone on business events is a big no-no for me. But I found my way to overcome these weaknesses using what I have. Building my brand through content was the way for me not having to do cold calling. I was very fortunate to start as a content creator already in 2009 as an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur. And even earlier, I started blogging in 2005 already, but professionally, like about my work, about my professional knowledge. I started creating content regularly in 2009. And this was the time when no one else was creating educational content in the business world yet, in Finland or really elsewhere either. And then what comes to business events, instead of going alone, I go with my colleagues or with my best friends who are way more extroverted than me. And they provide me with the energy, the kind of a safety blanket, introductions, and the fearlessness that I need in those situations. Networking is a really crucial part of marketing, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming for introverts. And I've learned to approach networking in a way that plays to my strengths. Instead of trying to meet everyone in the room, I focus on making a few meaningful connections or finding a few people that I know somehow and then kind of sticking with them for the rest of the evening if I'm alone. And I also prepare talking points in advance, set realistic goals for networking events, which makes me feel more sort of in control of being there and makes those events feel more manageable and also less intimidating. The good thing for me these days is that on my relevant business markets in Finland and relevant business circles in Finland, after over a decade as an entrepreneur and leading employer branding expert in this country, I've built a big enough network so that I already know a lot of people. I don't really have to attend many events as an unknown person anymore. And this helps me to approach people that I know and let them introduce me to people that I really don't know yet. But I have to say that I'm not the person who has a networking event booked on every single evening of the month. Not even every month, to be honest. Contrary to what many people mistakenly believe, for us introverts, we can be very social when we are in the presence of the company that we already know. I mean, I am super social with people that I know. I find them comfortable. Sometimes they may be strangers, but when I feel that kind of a connection immediately, I don't find that scenario intimidating anymore, and I can be super social. And every time I've said to my friends and my business acquaintances that I'm actually very introverted, they're always like, no, that's not true. You are the least introverted person that I know. But it's because I know them. They make me feel comfortable, and it's easy for me to be social with them. But find me in a networking business event alone, and you'll find me being very awkward and not comfortable in my skin. But you can help me in those scenarios, just coming to me and talking to me and kind of helping me feel more comfortable in there. Strangers make me feel timid and reserved, and I always hope that they make the first step. Now, I do love meeting new people. I do love talking to lots of people in these events, but I find it difficult to approach people that I don't know yet. And I always wish that they would approach me instead. Come to me, say hello, start a conversation. My timidness is not a signal of cockiness or anything like that. It's simply the introversion taking over and not knowing what to say to people that I don't know yet. And it can make me appear very awkward at times. Introverts tend to excel at one-on-one or small group interactions, creating very strong bonds with clients, colleagues, and stakeholders. And I know that many of my clients, people that I actually personally work with, they find me quite social and approachable and fun and very friendly and kind, whereas strangers may not at all see this. from me in those initial contact points. Fortunately, in employer branding, where understanding and communicating the company's ethos is key, those deep conversations and connections and the ability to really pay attention, listen, and pick up signals can lead to much more authentic and effective brand representation. And I find this to be one of my superpowers, this ability to read in between the lines and translate those situations and those messages, those clues into persuasive communication. In an increasingly digital world, introverts can also leverage technology to manage social interactions on their own terms. And that's what I also rely on, like social media and email marketing, WhatsApp, digital content creation. Those allow people like me, introverts like me, to connect with audiences without the energy drain of constant face-to-face interactions. And as an employer branding expert, I regularly use these tools to build a strong online presence, engage with my audiences in ways that feel manageable and authentic to me. And not just work, but I'm also terrible at calling anyone. So I send messages from text only to audio, video messages, pictures, memes, GIFs, and so on to keep in touch with my friends and family. I have one friend, one of my best friends, who is pretty much the only person that I ever regularly call, unless she calls me first. And we have regular weekly calls during which we either go for a walk, each at our own end, or do house chores while we talk. And those talks can easily be like 2 hours or more. And for us, we call it, this is just going to be a short call. It's usually like 30 to 40 minutes. And our husbands know this as well. Leadership in marketing, sales, or in organization doesn't always have to be loud or overly charismatic. Introverts can lead through example, demonstrating dedication and thoughtfulness and a keen eye for detail. Introverts are great at listening, which is usually undervalued characteristic in all leaders, and those working in sales, marketing, HR, talent acquisition, and so on. And in my role, I found that leading with empathy, I'm really empathetic person. I would say overly empathetic to the point where it hurts me every once in a while. And understanding also as the person, and this can create a work environment where creativity flourishes and team members can feel valued and heard. But of course, I mean, if you asked people that have worked for me over all these years that I've been an entrepreneur, I'm also human. So obviously I don't always succeed in this, but mostly I would say that I'm very empathetic and understanding and a great listener. What comes to marketing and branding specifically, introversion is actually more helpful for success than extroversion. Introverts are not good at talking about themselves, but they excel as subject knowledge experts, sharing insight, information, and educating others. I found this to be another fortunate superpower of mine, as I know how our audiences are mostly interested in how they can excel with the help of what we know, and not interested in being suffocated by content and information about how our agency or how I excel. Unless, obviously, that is put into a format of an inspirational example to learn from. This approach I found particularly effective in employer branding, where the goal is to create a positive and authentic employer image. Susan Cain has written this great book. This is a New York Times bestseller book, and it's called Quiet. And this book is about the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. And I've also seen her speak on stage as an introvert, which, by the way, is another area introverts can actually shine, maybe even more than extroverts. But I'll get into that later. But first, about this book, which I strongly recommend you to read. And even though this is a nonfiction book, It has been written in a story format, which makes it quite nice to follow if you're not that into nonfiction books. And first of all, this book successfully argues how the world of business and work dramatically undervalues introverts. And when I first started in HR in 2004, everyone hiring was asking to hire a social extrovert. And everyone applying for jobs claimed to be one, even when they clearly were not. Introversion, like extroversion, these are personality traits. And in the spectrum, they fall on the opposite ends. Most people are around the middle of the spectrum, so they have both traits dominant in their behavior, depending on the situation and the circumstances that they are. And only about 4% of people are only introverted or only extroverted. I am not only introverted, but I would say that I'm more introverted than extroverted. But I do have extroverted qualities as well, even though many of the introverted qualities are more dominant. In comparison, out of my 3 best friends here in Finland, 2 of them are, I would say, extremely extroverted in social circumstances, and they both need regular doses of social energy to keep them rolling. I get exhausted about hearing from them, that the amount of social activities that they have scheduled on nearly every day of the week, all the time, when for me, one social face-to-face activity per week or 2 is probably enough. On days when we have lots of meetings with our clients, I love all those meetings. After finishing each of those meetings, I feel excited and energized from that social interaction, because those are people that I already work with. I already have a relationship with them. I know them. If these were sales meetings, I would be literally just tired. Every time I've recruited people and had a bunch of interviews with job seekers, I am socially drained after those. So I need like a lot of time alone after that. I won't be interacting with anyone after work if I have had a lot of social activity during the day. And for the life of me, I could not handle going out and meeting people, even with my friends, every weekend. I just can't. So I would say that once a month on the average is probably enough time for me. But then again, I message with my best friends literally every day of the week, literally many times. So there you go. So what can we learn from Susan Cain's book, Quiet? We can learn that introverts are equally important at work than extroverts. They are equally intelligent and resourceful as colleagues and employees as extroverts. In some roles, extroverts are likely to succeed naturally better, when in some other roles, they can be a nightmare, and the same for introverts. This book, Quiet, encourages us introverts to embrace our true nature, those strengths that are unique to introverts and valuable for our organizations, for ourselves, and for the wider society. And I would say that if you are an introvert, you must read this book. I mean, this is a must read for all introverts. And I am not promoting this book other than, I purchased the book myself, and I have no connection to Susan Cain or anyone she represents. I just find that this book is really, really good. So Susan Cain, Quiet is the name of the book. Now, before we end this talk today, this episode, this video, I want to share my top tips for other introverts in marketing. So the first tip I want to share with you is preparation, because that is key for introverts in marketing. Whether it's a client meeting, a presentation, or a networking event, being well prepared can help alleviate anxiety and boost your confidence. I could never imagine going on a meeting with any client or anyone like outside the organization without having prepared for that. I want to feel confident that I'm on the top of it, even though it wasn't even though I wasn't the meeting organizer. So I spent some time researching, planning, and even rehearsing, depending on the scenario situation, which allows me to feel more in control and less overwhelmed in what might otherwise be a very high stress situation. Now, I'm such a seasoned professional in my domain already that preparing for something doesn't take me a lot of time. So it's just, I'm quite effective in preparing, but I always do my little prep in advance. My second tip is to find balance. This is important, I think, for introverts in marketing to find a balance between their professional and personal lives, ensuring that there is enough time for sort of the solitude and the activities that help recharge your batteries. I find that very crucial. So if I have a lot going on, I need a lot more downtime to help me sort of just mentally unwind and relax. And I've learned to schedule downtime after particularly social or demanding periods at work, which helps me to maintain my energy and my enthusiasm for my job. I mean, I've suffered from burnout before, and I'm extremely cautious of not ever falling into that rut again. And I'm very sort of, I pay a lot of attention into my own well-being and managing my energy levels. And obviously, as an entrepreneur, I have more leverage doing this as well. My tip number 3 is the importance of authenticity. Now, in a field often dominated by outgoing personalities, which is this marketing scenario, it's easy for us introverts to feel like we need to conform to a certain image. If you've been listening to my podcast for a longer time, you may remember me talking about personal branding and branding yourself as an expert, and how very early on in my entrepreneur career, when I was trying to personal brand myself, I was imitating those people who were known as personal brands at the time. This was 10 years ago at least. And I always found it really unfitting for me, because it was a lot about like talking about me and sort of bringing my, I don't know how to explain this, but like I've always found it more comfortable talking about the subject matter. So I might be a little boring like that, but I don't talk that much about my person, and I prefer to build my brand based on myself as this expert. But I do bring in some personality areas, because I think it's important for you to get to know me and get to trust me. But I find it difficult for my marketing and branding to be just about me. So I always like to have something more for you, and then maybe a little bit of me too. So that was about the conforming to a certain image of what you should be doing. However, I would say that embracing your authentic self is not only liberating, as I found out myself, but it's also very beneficial in marketing these days, because authenticity resonates with people, with humans. And in employer branding, it's essential for creating a genuine and relatable company image that is based on this human to human conversation, human to human dialogue. And by being true to myself, I've been able to connect more deeply with my audience and my clients, creating more meaningful and effective relationships and obviously connections, and building an audience who appreciates and likes me for who I am. And as a result of this, I've realized that I will always have a niche and have my own client audience who chooses me, because they are people who are in ways like me and resonate. My person resonates with them because they can identify themselves with me. So that's very important for you to realize as well, that be you, and especially in employer branding, make sure that your employer branding is true to what your company actually, if your company was the person, if your organizational culture was a person, your employer branding needs to be the personal brand of that culture. So the thing about branding is to differentiate yourself from competition. And this is something that is like at the core of successful branding. You're not branding if you're doing the same as others. And the only way to make it consistent and sustainable, that branding, is to be authentic, because eventually you'll run out of ideas of trying to be something else. So base branding, all branding, whether it's company branding, personal branding, branding yourself as an expert, employer branding, branding yourself as an entrepreneur, base branding on authentic traits and values and behavior of yourself, of your organization, of your business. That will make your brand magnetic and attract those people who can relate. Tip number 4, utilize your introverted qualities in employer branding. Magnetic employer branding method provides you this systematic approach, applying storytelling and creating a narrative that showcases the company's culture, the personality, and values. And introverts, with their propensity for deep thought and reflective thinking, are well suited to this task. They can delve into what makes a company unique and articulate this in a way that is both engaging and authentic, I find. And in developing the magnetic employer branding method, I've learned and I've leveraged these qualities to create a modern approach that really resonates with both employers and those potential, with both employers, with employees and potential employees, future employees. Tip number 5, continuous learning and adaptation. Now, the marketing world is constantly evolving, and staying informed about the latest trends and technologies, I think, is very crucial. And introverts often excel in areas where continuous learning and adaptation are required. So by dedicating time to education, to skill development, as an introvert, you can stay ahead in this field and bring fresh and innovative ideas to your work. And this is what I love doing, and it's one of the winning traits of my personal brand. I'm very good at staying ahead and updating my knowledge all the time because I love learning. And this is what my introverted side supports. Alrighty, let's wrap this up. So if you happen to be an introvert in marketing, recruiting, HR, employer branding, remember that you have these very unique qualities that can be incredibly powerful, your superpowers in this marketing world. And by embracing your natural tendencies towards listening and paying attention and deep thinking and meaningful communication, and as an introvert, I believe that you can thrive in this seemingly extroverted field of marketing. And as an introvert, marketing and communications entrepreneur, I found that leveraging these strengths along with a focus on this authenticity and continuous learning, these have probably been key to my success as an entrepreneur and an employer brand marketing expert. So, my fellow introverts in marketing, you should feel empowered to use your innate abilities to create impactful and innovative and successful career leveraging branding, marketing, and communications yourself. All right, this is it for this week. If you like this episode, if you like my podcast, if you like me, please subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with your introverted colleagues. Let them have this wisdom of understanding that introversion can be your superpower. And stay tuned for more insightful episodes on mastering branding, marketing, and communications in talent acquisition, employer branding, career development. And come back next week. My name is Susanna Rantanen. Thanks for tuning in. Moi moi.